we get a lot of questions about average conversion rate and exactly how much money, should you be spending on advertising, with Google or Facebook or whatever. And what we're here to show you in this particular video is exactly how to spend your money wisely. Okay, so there's lots of different mediums out there, the traditional mediums, the digital mediums. There's a lot of talk, a lot of advertising, a lot of, education, webinars and whatever else. But what you really need to be focused on is conversion rate. All right. Everything's about conversions at the very outset. The problem is grassroots sales, needs to occur first with grassroots leads, right? So leads equal, more chances at more sales. And if you've got a proper sales process, then of course, all your real problem is just developing more leads, right? So at the end of the day, you really need to be focused on conversion rate if you have the appropriate sales process in the background to be able to handle those types of conversions. It's not about click-through rate. And click-through rate is really talked about quite often, but really, what really here to focus on is the meat is conversion, right? That's really where your advertising dollars turn into ROI. And in health and medical, okay, the average conversion rate is 3.6% in search and about 0.82% in display. Okay, so the average across all industries is 3.75% on search and 0.77% on the display network. All right, and this is a really important number because people spend a lot of money on search. People are spending a ton of money on search advertising, and the average cost per click in search advertising is, as you well know, anybody that's ever run this, is over $2.85. That's just the average industry rate. But if you're an implant dentist and you're competing with 5 other dentists at 6 p.m. when people are looking for implants and they're Googling stuff on their way home, well, you're going to pay upwards of $14 to $20. If you're a personal injury lawyer, that keyword might cost you, upwards of $30 or $40 per click. All right. So if you're getting 1,000 clicks and you're paying $30 per click, and I've seen dentists do this, there's examples all over our website, folks who've spent over $1 million in advertising a year, for that type of click volume. And really it's, I find it to be somewhat of a waste of money if you're not properly funneling them to the process. You're educating that patient or understanding where they are at that decision-making process digitally. If you don't, you're just shooting, stuff against the wall in the dark, right? So at the end of the day, the average conversion rate in average across all industries is 3.75% and 0.77% on the display network. In health and medical, it's 0.82% and approximately 3.36% in search. All right. So that being said, let's look at what is traditionally been focused on as some sort of industry benchmark, which is click-through rate, which is really good for the advertisers, but not good for you, right? And so the average click-through rate, which again is a completely useless statistic in my mind, is 3.17 on the search network and 0.46 on the display network. Okay, so yes, great, you can get people to click on ads, but can you get them to convert? That's the question. All right. So that being said, what I'm going to do now is show you, by the way, this is the WordStream article if anybody wants to take a look. This can be found just by Googling, WordStream search versus display. And as I showed you here, since the last time we compiled this data, search conversion rates have risen slightly, but display conversion rates have fallen slightly. That's a sign that display advertisers need to pay more attention to placements and audience optimization, which is, content for another video. But you also don't want to overwhelm Google, and Google will tell you this themselves, their AI, with too many placements and audience optimizations, right? You want to make sure you're running your campaign separately. So an optimized campaign runs 2 separate targets, but doesn't overwhelm the system. Now, after that short little tangent, if we get to health and medical, your average, conversion in search here, again, 3.36 and 0.82%, right? So anyways, if you want to check out that article, you can. Take a quick jump over here and show you some real world examples. So, we looked at what the average conversion rate is across the industry, and we looked at, unfortunately, what the average cost per click was across the industry. Now we're going to look at what that does to your ROI. Okay, so how this affects your ROI, how this affects your local marketing, and impression value within your local market, because you're competing with a lot of other practices for that same patient eyeball. Okay, so this is the practice in Colorado who ran no advertising this month. So as you can see here, advertising impressions 0. His views in Google, just under 2,000. His website visits, 119. His phone calls to the practice, 129, and direction requests, 11. Okay, so he was running absolutely no advertising in this month. Obviously it was a little bit of a downturn, but across the industry, the problems still remain the same. So the phone calls didn't really change. The direction request to see if you were near, that particular practice didn't change either, right? Now look at the month where he did run it. So this is June. So June, now you're in front of 93,000 people. So again, when you start these display campaigns after pausing them, there's a certain impression value that goes down. So I expect anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million impressions a month in a campaign, depending on how it's running and the targets you're going after. But regardless, out of 100,000 ad impressions in display, by the way. And we'll go into those numbers in a second, and we'll prove those numbers in a second and show you some of the proof behind that. But if you look at the views in Google, 4,000 views in Google. So let's go back here. 2,000 views in Google, 4,000. So now he's doubled that view. Now, that doesn't really, everyone looking at Google My Business, well, if your reputation sucks or, you have something that doesn't really jive with that patient, then you're probably going to lose those folks, right? But if you are good at what you do, and you've got some folks there that can convert people on the phone, then your website visits, Google My Business visits are going to turn into phone calls direct. So if you'll look here, his phone calls directly were 129, and they went to 319 in literally 1 month of running advertising and just being in front of more people for a lot less spend. Now for this type of ad impression, again, for 500,000 ad impressions in display, we are seeing clicks, anywhere from 23 cents to 49 cents. So well under industry average with, actual conversion rate averages. And we can show you this, just super quick before we get into that a little bit later on. At 332 conversions and an average conversion rate of 1.68%, and the click-through rate and average cost per click, is 33 cents, right? So smashing all categories, if you just do it right. Again, 4.55% in implants. This is for a practice in California. This is 4.55%, absolutely smashing conversions. They're getting implant patients applying for under $14 in their advertising, and their cost per click is very low. All right, it's extremely low for that type of impression value. He's appeared in his market, across just these 3 campaigns over 63 million times. All right, in Anaheim, very powerful. Okay, same thing, here. Again, this is in Colorado. So the example we're looking at now. This is actually across 4 months of advertising. So if you can see the curve, started in February, peaked in March here slightly. Then paused, obviously, for reasons we all know that I'm not going to repeat, and then started back up, in June, right, which we just looked at, right. He started in June, and then he ramped up and got this impression rate high in July, right. So out of 3.5 months of advertising, his click-through rate, his average cost per click is 58 cents, right. His conversion rate, remember, 0.85%, he's at 1.42. So these are like search conversion rates, or just under, in California, smashing search conversion rates, which is, 3% or over, and in display. Okay, so this type of number translates into growth. Okay, this is what you're looking for, is phone calls into the business, conversions, advertising conversions. Now this is June. Remember, we just ramped him up. So normally, in his lead category, this should be much higher. Okay. But as we're switching over, I'll show you another practice. So same idea, right? Is that what you'll see in these examples is it's all relative to the amount of people you're in front of. Okay, so if you're in front of more people, you're going to get more conversions. Okay. And that is just the reality of it. And as you can see here, what happens is this just, if I have the screens ready, you'll see a little bit of a lag while the reports are pulling up and the data is being pulled. But as you've seen the numbers, This is equivalent to growth in your business. Now, this here, as you can see, is July. We just looked at June. Now, if you look at July, okay, his impressions now are up to where we should be, which is, 500,000 ad impressions, which, lead to 3,500 ad clicks and lead to 300 plus phone calls and 88 direction requests. And your ad conversions, you got 65 people that applied for an implant consultation or, some sort of cosmetic, all on for implant or some sort of cosmetic type procedure. Okay, so it's a big difference. This is a big difference. This is a practice in Toronto. Okay, so same idea. You're not running advertising, or your advertising is low. So your views in Google, 5,400, your phone call requests are X. But when you get to actually appearing, so this is the next month, okay, so this is August, almost 1 million times in her market. All right, she's a hygienist that owns a practice and has an implant dentist and 2 associates working with her, and basically she's busy. All right, her ad views in Google doubled. Okay, so if you look at her views in Google, it almost doubled. Okay, 5,400 to 9,800. She got 66 phone calls directly, 84 implant consultation requests, and 101 direction requests. These are just people looking to see how close you are to their practice, to their home, and then, what you can translate into them physically calling you to get a book. So out of 4,900 clicks, all right, and you saw the numbers before, like, 47 cents to 50 cents. This is the type of action she's getting to her practice in phone calls. It's like that across every single industry. This is actually we looked at a practice in the US. We looked at a practice in Canada. Now we're going to look at a practice in Singapore. Okay, so this is a practice in Singapore. He spends a lot of money on advertising. He's over 2 million ad impressions in 1 month, just in July. He's over 2 million ad impressions. He got 120 people who applied, over 311 leads. Okay, so this is big. Your advertising clicks are over 13,000. He's spending about $100 a day in advertising, to get 119 direction requests, 17, and he needs verifiably in that one practice to onboard a minimum of 100 new patients a month. And this is doing it for him for less than $100 a day in advertising. Okay, and the amount of general patients and referrals are getting off this is also monumental. So these are the types of things that you need as a practice owner, business owner to look at. These are the types of numbers you need to look at. We have not, scrolled down to where you need to be for zero-click search for, listings and so on. But as you can see, this particular person is not focused on their listings, all right? And so again, in Singapore, it's a little bit more difficult with understanding, what directories to submit to. There's a little bit more legalities around there. But if you look at a practice who, started here at D and moved up to A, is simply because she followed best practices by throwing the right types of ads and playing Google's game by, appearing in their display advertising network and, getting the right conversion rate and showing them that your ads are worthy enough of converting. And then, of course, ensuring that you're listed correctly across all the major sites so that you can start to outwit your competition in that, zero-click Google Maps area. All right. And so you can see here, she went from a D, started at, 209th percentile, and now she's an A, and she appears absolutely everywhere. In fact, as a live example, if I was just to search for, Markham dental implant, and I probably spell it wrong too, of course, Markham dental appears number 1, right? So there's a reason why she's there. Okay, there's a reason why Markham Dental is there, and that's because she understands, how to take her listings and ensure that she combines it properly with her impressions, engagement, and phone calls and direction requests. So that is your education for the day. Go forth, save some money, and be healthy and well. Thank you.